I'm Soraya, she chirped proudly, lifting her paint-splattered hands. That's Soraya. Want me to draw you with a better face? Callum's mouth parted slightly. This wasn't happening. Not here. Not in Willow Oaks, the senior daycare where his mother had been recovering after a mild stroke. He had come to check in on her therapy progress, drop off a new silk scarf, maybe stay for tea. Nothing more. Nothing less. And then, this child. Hello, my beautiful family, and welcome once again to Love and Twilight with Dr. Phillips. Before we dive into today's powerful story, I want to feel your presence here. Type in the comments, I am ready, Dr. Phillips, so I know you're walking this journey with me. Don't just listen quietly. Your engagement gives life to this community. Hit the like button if you believe in the power of love and healing. And subscribe so you never miss a single chapter with his face. Did you eat a lemon? She pressed, stepping closer. Excuse me? You're squinting at me like lemons are stuck in your teeth. Callum opened his mouth to respond, but found no words. A heartbeat later, someone else answered for him. Soraya, a voice like silk, frayed silk, tired but still elegant. He turned. She stood there with paper towels in her hands, a smudge of blue paint on her sleeve, and that same posture he remembered from years ago, proud and guarded. Imani Rhodes. The air shifted. She froze when she saw him. Her lips parted, no sound. Then they pressed together firmly, and she turned to Soraya. Time to wash your hands, baby. Wait, Callum said, stepping forward. She looks like me. Imani didn't blink. She's my daughter. That doesn't answer me. She turned her back and walked away. Callum stood there, unable to move, the weight of those 6 words hammering in his chest. She's my daughter. It had been 6 years. 6 years since Milan. 6 years since they had shared a night under string lights, violins, and laughter in the old quarter of the city. He had disappeared the next morning. IPO deal. Boardroom chaos. No goodbye. No follow-up. He'd told himself she was better off. He was damaged goods, a man raised in wealth, but deprived of emotional balance. The kind who touched gold, but corroded love. But now, he wasn't so sure. That little girl didn't just resemble him. She radiated pieces of him. Mr. Drain? The front desk nurse interrupted with a forced smile, unsure whether to break the tension. Yes, he replied absently. Your mother is in the sunroom. Would you like me to take you? No, I'll find her in a minute. The nurse gave a small nod and stepped away. Callum looked toward the hallway where Imani had vanished, Soraya bouncing beside her. She hadn't even turned around. He stood there for nearly 2 minutes, unmoving, mind racing, until a voice behind him said softly, You dropped your pen. He turned. Imani held it out to him. But her hand didn't shake. Her gaze didn't flinch. You shouldn't have come here, she said. I didn't know you were here. She didn't respond. She looks just like me, Imani. She looks like herself, she said, cool and calm. She's her own person. Callum stepped closer. Is she mine? Imani's fingers tightened around the pen. You don't get to ask that now. I need to know. No, she said, stepping back. You need to let go. She placed the pen in his palm, turned again, and this time walked without looking back. Callum stood alone in the lobby of Willow Oaks, pen in hand, heart racing like he just heard a verdict. The deal that once made him a billionaire didn't compare to the question now burning in his chest. Did I leave behind more than just a memory in Milan? Because if that child was his. Then his past just walked back into his life, with finger paint, giggles, and the power to break or remake his entire world. Callum Drain wasn't a man who lost focus, but that night, every line of code on his laptop blurred. The numbers in his financial model lost meaning. The echo of one name pulsed louder than the skyline beneath his penthouse window. Imani. He whispered it, like it was still sacred, like Milan hadn't been 6 years ago, like that name hadn't been folded up and hidden in a drawer he swore never to open again. But now, the drawer was wide open. He walked across the marble floor barefoot, drink untouched in hand. The glass caught the light from the city towers, but his mind was replaying every moment of that night in Italy. One violin, one glass of red wine, one rooftop with string lights. She had laughed, not the soft, shy kind, but the full, belly-deep kind that made you want to believe in forever. Imani had been the first woman who didn't ask about his wealth or offer him a LinkedIn pitch disguised as flirtation. She talked about music and love like they were sacred. She played the violin for a child outside the restaurant just because he had asked, and her bow danced across the strings like she was born holding it. That night, he had whispered things to her he had never told anyone, that he was lonely, that he felt unworthy, that he was scared of becoming his father, cold, absent, unreachable. Imani had simply listened, held his hand, let him be a man without the weight of his net worth. They made love slowly, no rush, no mask, just skin and soul. And then morning came, and so did the email. The IPO date was moved up. Meetings, due diligence, analysts, flights. He packed up in silence and left. Now he knew. She hadn't just walked away with memories. She had walked away carrying a child. She looks like me. He said it out loud again, as if hearing it made it less terrifying. He ran his hand down his face and tossed his phone onto the couch. But it lit up again with notifications, market news, CEO updates, his assistant confirming Monday's board briefing. None of it mattered. He picked up the phone and tapped the number. "Yes," said a gentle voice on the other end. "This is Callum Drain." "Of course, Mr. Drain. Please reschedule my mornings indefinitely." "Indefinitely?" "Yes. Also, tell the nurse I'll be visiting Willow Oaks every morning. I want full access to the resident wing, and clear all acquisition meetings from 8 to 11 a.m. daily." A pause. "Yes, sir. I'll confirm immediately." He ended the call and stood at the window. Rain had started again. Light, rhythmic. He wasn't sure if it was cleansing or punishing. Callum walked into Willow Oaks at precisely 8:15 a.m. This time, he wasn't distracted by spreadsheets or corporate alerts. He watched the hallway, the paintings on the walls, the way toddlers passed paper crowns to elders like they were royalty. And then he saw her. Not Imani, Soraya, sitting at a table beside a man with a gray beard and sketchbook. "No, Mr. Howard," she giggled. "That's not how giraffes look. They don't have mustaches." Callum cracked a smile despite himself. She had spirit, just like her mother. "Mr. Callum." Soraya spotted him and waved her orange-smeared hand. "Back for your lemon face?" He blinked. "Lemon face?" She nodded, grinning. "You looked like someone squeezed sour in your brain yesterday." He chuckled. "Maybe I did. Want to sit? I'll draw you better today." Imani entered the room just in time to hear that. Her steps slowed. She caught his eyes, and he saw it. Not surprise, not fear, weariness. The look of a woman who had already decided she didn't owe him anything. "Soraya," she said softly, "it's time for your music hour." Already? I was gonna fix his lemon face." Imani met Callum's eyes as Soraya ran to grab her toy violin. The moments stretched between them, unspoken, heavy. "You're making her like you," she said under her breath. Callum looked away. "I didn't mean to." But you are." He took a breath. "I never forgot your name," he said quietly. She paused mid-step. "Imani," he said again. "I remember everything." And with that, she walked away again. But this time, he saw the tremble in her hands as she picked up Soraya's crayons. Imani had buried the past, but it was rising again, loud, bright, and painted in the colors of a child who looked like him. Comment. You've ever met someone you never truly forgot? Don't forget to like and subscribe to Love and Twilights. The next part is just around the corner, and it's about to get even more intense. The skyscraper glass gleamed behind him. Callum Drain sat at the head of the table, staring blankly as his CFO walked through the latest reports. And our third quarter earnings beat projections. M&A on track. Japan is ready for acquisition terms next week, the CFO concluded, sliding over a summary. Callum didn't move. Sir? He blinked. Yeah. Great. Approve it. His assistant raised a brow. Do you want to review the documents first? No need, he said, standing up. I trust the numbers. I'll be out of the office the rest of the week. The room went still. Is this about the Willow Oaks visit again? She asked. He met her eyes. Yes. By 8 a.m., Callum was already at the daycare. He wasn't dressed like before. He'd swapped his navy suit for a soft cashmere sweater and loafers. No briefcase, just a small sketch pad he'd picked up from a bookstore downtown. He didn't know what he was doing here, only that leaving hadn't felt right. Mr. Callum, Soraya spotted him first. She ran up and tugged his hand. Want to draw with us again? You were really bad last time. He laughed. You're brutally honest. Mommy says that's called integrity. From the corner, Imani turned. She wasn't smiling, but she didn't stop Soraya either. Callum sat on the floor, legs crossed like a preschooler, and let the little girl drag him into her world of colored pencils and wild ideas. I'm drawing a giraffe named Jellybean, she explained. He only eats cookies. Sounds nutritious. I'm making him wear sunglasses because he's fabulous. He glanced at her, this confident, bright, talkative child. He had missed 6 years of her sparkle. It wasn't just guilt anymore. It was grief. Later that morning, as the kids settled in for story hour, Callum stood near the coffee machine in the staff lounge. Imani walked in quietly, heading straight for the sink. Thanks for not pushing me out, he said without looking at her. I didn't let you stay, she replied, rinsing her hands. You just came. He turned to her. You know why. I do, but it doesn't make it easier. Callum stepped closer. I want to do the right thing. Imani dried her hands slowly. That's a convenient line for men who vanish. I never stopped thinking about you. Or that night. She turned sharply. You just chose your empire. He nodded once. I did. And now? Now I've realized I built it with a hole in the middle. The room went quiet. Only the soft hum of the microwave and the faint sound of children singing in the distance remained. That afternoon, Callum watched from the hallway as Imani taught violin to 3 senior residents and 2 toddlers. She was gentle but firm, patient with the elderly man who kept missing notes, encouraging with the toddler who chewed the bow instead of playing. Her eyes lit up when she taught. Soraya danced around the class in a pink headband, her toy violin slung around her shoulder like a guitar. Play it like Beyoncé, Mommy. She giggled. Imani chuckled. Beyoncé doesn't play violin, baby. Then I'll be the first. Callum felt something deep crack inside his chest. It wasn't longing anymore. It was belonging, and he hadn't felt it in years. Back at his penthouse, Callum stood by the giant window wall, staring out at the glittering city. He poured a glass of whiskey, didn't drink it. He opened a locked drawer in his study. Inside were 2 things, a faded hotel keycard from Milan, and a photograph, just one, from that night. Imani smiling, wrapped in his jacket on the rooftop. He held the photo in both hands. I missed too much. He picked up his phone. Text to assistant. Cancel Tokyo trip. Extend Willow Oaks clearance indefinitely. The skyscraper glass gleamed behind him. Callum Drain sat at the head of the table, staring blankly as his CFO walked through the latest reports. And our third quarter earnings beat projections. M&A on track. Japan is ready for acquisition terms next week, the CFO concluded, sliding over a summary. Callum didn't move. Sir? He blinked. Yeah. Great. Approve it. His assistant raised a brow. Do you want to review the documents first? No need, he said, standing up. I trust the numbers. I'll be out of the office the rest of the week. The room went still. Is this about the Willow Oaks visit again? She asked. He met her eyes. Yes. By 8 a.m., Callum was already at the daycare. He wasn't dressed like before. He'd swapped his navy suit for a soft cashmere sweater and loafers. No briefcase, just a small sketch pad he'd picked up from a bookstore downtown. He didn't know what he was doing here, only that leaving hadn't felt right. Mr. Callum. Soraya spotted him first. She ran up and tugged his hand. Want to draw with us again? You were really bad last time. He laughed. You're brutally honest. Mommy says that's called integrity. The corner. Imani turned. She wasn't smiling, but she didn't stop Soraya either. Callum sat on the floor, legs crossed like a preschooler, and let the little girl drag him into her world of colored pencils and wild ideas. I'm drawing a giraffe named Jellybean, she explained. He only eats cookies. Sounds nutritious. I'm making him wear sunglasses, because he's fabulous. He glanced at her, this confident, bright, talkative child. He had missed 6 years of her sparkle. It wasn't just guilt anymore. It was grief. Later that morning, as the kids settled in for story hour, Callum stood near the coffee machine in the staff lounge. Imani walked in quietly, heading straight for the sink. Thanks for not pushing me out, he said without looking at her. I didn't let you stay, she replied, rinsing her hands. You just came. He turned to her. You know why? I do, but it doesn't make it easier. Callum stepped closer. I want to do the right thing. Imani dried her hands slowly. That's a convenient line for men who vanish. I never stopped thinking about you. Or that night. She turned sharply. You just chose your empire. He nodded once. I did. And now? Now I've realized I built it with a hole in the middle. The room went quiet. Only the soft hum of the microwave and the faint sound of children singing in the distance remained. That afternoon, Callum watched from the hallway as Imani taught violin to 3 senior residents and 2 toddlers. She was gentle, but firm, patient with the elderly man who kept missing notes, encouraging with the toddler who chewed the bow instead of playing. Her eyes lit up when she taught. Soraya danced around the class in a pink headband, her toy violin slung around her shoulder like a guitar. Play it like Beyoncé, Mommy, she giggled. Imani chuckled. Beyoncé doesn't play violin, baby. Then I'll be the first. Callum felt something deep crack inside his chest. It wasn't longing anymore. It was belonging, and he hadn't felt it in years. Back at his penthouse, Callum stood by the giant window wall, staring out at the glittering city. He poured a glass of whiskey. Didn't drink it. He opened a locked drawer in his study. Inside were 2 things, a faded hotel keycard from Milan, and a photograph, just one, from that night. Imani smiling, wrapped in his jacket on the rooftop. He held the photo in both hands. I missed too much. He picked up his phone. Text to assistant. Cancel Tokyo trip. Extend Willow Oaks clearance indefinitely. 2 days later, Callum was no longer just a visitor. He'd become a fixture. Soraya would beam when he walked in. Her voice would echo across the room. Mr. Callum, come see what I made. Today, she was building a castle with empty cereal boxes and glue. Glitter in her braids. Socks mismatched. Grin unbeatable. He crouched beside her. That's a pretty impressive castle. It's not just a castle. It's a music palace, she corrected. Every room has different songs. Let me guess. One room plays Beyoncé. Always. She smirked, then shoved a glue stick into his hand. You're on door duty. Callum raised a brow. Door duty? Yep. No doors, no palace. That's logic. He was mid-glue when he felt it. Eyes on him. He looked up. Imani stood by the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Why are you here every day? Imani asked quietly as they stood near the hallway water cooler. Her tone wasn't angry. It was cautious. Callum took a moment before answering. Because I missed 6 years, and I won't miss another 6 minutes. She didn't reply. He turned to face her. You could have told me. You could have stayed. They both stood in silence. Does she know? He asked. No, Imani replied. Not yet. Callum exhaled slowly. Why? Because I didn't know if you were the kind of man who showed up or disappeared. That's fair. She met his gaze. You left like she was nothing. Like I was nothing. His voice dropped. I left because I didn't think I deserved it. She looked away. You're doing well, he added. You've built something good. Imani turned to him sharply. Don't mistake survival for peace. Later that afternoon, Callum stood by the hallway window, watching through the glass as Imani helped the children pack up their instruments. Soraya jumped up and down, pretending her toy violin was a spaceship. "Zoom, zoom," she shouted. Imani smiled, then caught Callum watching. She didn't look away this time. Instead, she walked over. "You're good with her," she said flatly. "I'm trying." Imani folded her arms. "Trying means nothing if you vanish again." "I'm not leaving." "You always say the right things," she said, voice soft now. "It's your follow-through." I stopped believing in, as the sun dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows across the daycare. Lot, Callum and Imani stepped out together after closing time. The walk to her car was quiet. Soraya had been picked up by her sitter earlier. "I used to wonder if you ever thought of me," Imani said suddenly. "I did," he said, hands in pockets. "Too much. Funny. I used to pray I could forget you." Callum turned toward her. "I don't expect forgiveness." "Good," she said, "because I don't have it to give yet. But I'm not here for forgiveness." "Then what are you here for?" He paused. "To earn the right to know her, and to stand beside you, not behind you." Imani's breath caught. Before she could respond, he added, "You don't owe me anything, but she deserves everything." That night, Callum drove home in silence. No music, no distractions, just one thought on loop: she hasn't shut the door completely. And that was all he needed for now. The music room at Willow Oaks wasn't fancy. It smelled of floor polish and chalk. The piano was old, its ivory keys faded at the edges. But when Imani walked in, it became something else. It became a sanctuary. Callum stood outside the door, watching through the glass window. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but something about the way she adjusted the kids' chairs and hummed under her breath pulled him in. Then it happened. She picked up a violin. The bow slid across the strings, and the notes hit him like thunder. That tune, that same tune from the rooftop in Milan. He leaned against the doorframe, frozen. They had just finished dinner. She had playfully stolen his scarf and walked ahead of him on cobblestone. Streets, twirling, laughing, violin case bouncing against her hip. "Play me something," he'd begged, tipsy from wine and her smile. She sat on a nearby fountain edge, pulled out her instrument, and began to play. It wasn't showy. It wasn't loud. It was delicate, a melody soft enough to make time pause. When she finished, he had whispered, "Don't leave. Not yet." And she hadn't, until he did. Inside the classroom, Imani guided the children through a basic rhythm. "Let's try again. 4 counts. 1, 2, ready." Callum stepped in slowly. Soraya spotted him first. "Mr. Callum," she beamed, waving her mini violin in the air. Imani looked up. Her hands didn't stop conducting. "Sit quietly if you're staying," she said without expression. He nodded and took a seat in the corner. The kids played, off-key but enthusiastic. Soraya bowed wildly, tongue sticking out in concentration. Callum watched Imani closely. She didn't just teach, she nurtured. She moved like music was part of her spine, every gesture intentional, gentle, instructive. And Callum realized something brutal. She had given everything to this world she built, without him. As the class ended and kids filtered out, Soraya bounded up to Callum. "Did you hear me? I played the solo." "You did," he smiled. "You're a star. Mommy says I have rhythm in my bones." Imani approached, collecting papers. "You do, sweetheart. Go grab your lunch from the fridge." When Soraya skipped out, Callum stood. "You played that song." Imani didn't look up. "It's still my favorite." He took a step closer. "You haven't forgotten either." Her voice was quiet. "Memories don't vanish just because people do." Callum sighed. "I regret leaving. I know." He hesitated. "I didn't think I was enough." She met his eyes. "You were more than enough. That was the problem. You just didn't believe it." Later, they sat on a wooden bench near the garden. The children were playing a few feet away. Soraya ran around with a flower crown half tilted on her head. I kept thinking, Callum said, that if I stayed with you, I'd mess you up. Imani didn't respond. I didn't know about her. You never asked. I didn't think I deserved to. She turned to him. So now what? You know, you're showing up. What does that mean? Callum looked at the grass. It means I'm not going anywhere. Even if you never let me in fully, I'm going to be here. For her. Imani exhaled. For the first time, her shoulders relaxed. That melody, she said, voice softer. I stopped playing it after you left. For a long time. What made you pick it up again? She paused. Soraya heard it on an old video. Said it made her feel like hugging someone. Callum's throat tightened. I guess, she added, even memories leave echoes. He reached out slowly, brushing a loose curl from her face. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. Not yet. The notes of the past were still playing between them. And though forgiveness was still far off, something else had begun. Recognition. Of pain, of presence, of possibility. Callum stood outside Willow Oaks earlier than usual, a slim rectangular box in his hand. His knuckles were white against the leather handle. He stared at the building's sign, as if trying to gather the courage to walk in. Inside the case was something he'd kept hidden for years, not because he forgot, but because he couldn't face what it meant. Today, he would. Imani was helping the toddlers arrange rhythm bells when Callum entered. She glanced at him briefly, then resumed what she was doing. He waited until the kids were busy before he walked up and placed the case gently on her desk. She blinked. I kept it, he said. Imani hesitated, then slowly unlatched the case. Inside was the violin from Milan, the same wood grain, the same scratch on the chin rest from where she'd once dropped it during a street performance. She covered her mouth. Her hand trembled. Why? She whispered. Callum swallowed hard. I took it by accident when I left. I meant to send it back. I even boxed it once. But I couldn't bring myself to let it go. Her eyes shimmered. I thought I lost it forever. He stepped closer. I couldn't play it, but I couldn't throw it away either. They sat alone now, the kids napping in the other room. Imani gently stroked the strings. I played this in every street corner that year. Callum nodded. I remember. You made every crowd fall silent. I didn't have much, she added, but I had this. And one night, I gave that night to you. He didn't flinch, and I ruined it. She didn't respond. Callum leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've built tech platforms, brokered billion-dollar mergers, stood in front of camera crews and shareholders. But nothing's ever scared me more than watching that little girl walk away from me in orange paint. Imani looked at him. He continued. And nothing has ever mattered more than hearing her call me Mr. Callum, like I was some stranger. You were. I don't want to be. She placed the violin under her chin, eyes locked with his. You're not the same man anymore, she said quietly. You say that like it's a bad thing. She began to play. Just one note. Then another. The room filled with something more honest than words. She played the same melody from Milan. Slower now. Fuller. Wiser. Callum closed his eyes. This wasn't nostalgia. It was rebirth. When she finished, silence lingered. I thought you'd forget me, she said. I tried, he admitted. But forgetting you felt like forgetting the only real part of myself. Imani exhaled sharply. He stood and walked to the door, then paused. I'll never ask you to go back in time, but I want to move forward, wherever that leads. He walked out, leaving the violin with her. The next morning, Soraya drew a family portrait. 3 stick figures. 1 tall man with messy hair. 1 woman with a violin. 1 little girl with sparkles in her hair. She looked up at Imani. Is that okay, Mommy? Imani smiled. It's more than okay. Soraya grinned. Good. Because I already made copies. The thunder came in waves. Rain sliced across Imani's living room windows as she curled up on the couch. Wrapped in her robe, a book in her lap she hadn't read a single word of. Soraya was fast asleep in her room, humming softly in her dreams. But Imani couldn't rest. Not tonight. Not after everything resurfaced. The violin, the conversation, the way Callum looked at her, not like he wanted the past back, but like he wanted to build something new. It was unsettling. Too soon. Too much. And then, a knock. Sharp, heavy, out of place. Her heart jumped. She moved slowly toward the door, hesitant. Looked through the peephole. Callum, soaked from head to toe. She opened the door a crack. Rain poured behind him like a curtain. Callum's hair was drenched, his sweater clung to his chest, and his jaw was clenched tight. "I need to talk," he said. "It's late. I know. You're dripping on my porch. I'll dry. I didn't invite you. You didn't slam the door either." She hesitated, then opened it fully. He stepped inside, water pooling on the mat beneath his shoes. She handed him a towel, not looking at him directly. He rubbed his hair, then stood there, hands still shaking slightly. "I wasn't going to come. Then why did you?" Callum's voice cracked. "Because I couldn't sleep. And I don't want to run anymore." Imani folded her arms. "You already ran. For 6 years." He nodded slowly. "And every year I thought I was doing the right thing, building, expanding, achieving." She met his gaze now. "And what did you gain?" He stepped closer. "A penthouse, a company, awards, but not one single picture on my wall makes me feel what she did today when she drew that music palace." Silence. Only the rain and the sound of her heart pounding. "I saw you again, and everything in me locked up," he continued, "because you were the only thing I let go that actually mattered." She stared at him, blinking fast. "You left without a word." "I know. You abandoned me." "I did." "You abandoned her. I didn't know." Imani swallowed hard. "And if you had, I would have stayed." "That's easy to say now. I would have stayed," he repeated, "because even if I was a mess, I would have known she deserved more than silence." Imani moved toward the window, arms hugging herself. Callum stood behind her. "I don't expect you to forget what I did." "Good," she said, "but I'm begging you to let me make new memories. Better ones." She turned slowly. "Why now?" "Because I saw her. And something in me shattered." He stepped closer. She looked at me like I was someone. Not a stranger, not a monster, just someone. Imani's lips trembled, and for once, he whispered, "I wanted to be enough." She didn't speak, just looked at him. And then, like lightning igniting dry grass, she pulled him in. Their lips met like a clash and a homecoming all at once. His hands gripped her waist. Hers tugged at his shirt, bunching the fabric between her fingers. The kiss was urgent, raw, not gentle, like they both needed to feel the weight of every year, every silence, every tear. Callum leaned his forehead against hers, both of them breathless. "I'm still angry," she said, voice husky. "Good," he replied. "It means you still care." She looked up. "You shouldn't have come, but I did." They stood there, wrapped in the storm and each other's regrets. Then, from the hallway, "Mommy?" Soraya's sleepy voice. Imani pulled away quickly. "Go in the kitchen. Now." Callum nodded and moved silently. Imani knelt as Soraya padded in, rubbing her eyes. "It's raining loud," the girl murmured. "I know, baby. Come here." She lifted her daughter into her arms, kissed her forehead, and tucked her back into bed. Back in the kitchen, Callum waited. She walked in, arms folded again. "I let you in tonight," she said, "but that doesn't mean I trust you. I know. You'll have to earn everything." "I will." She opened the door. He walked past her, then stopped under the doorway, turned back. "Thank you for opening the door. I almost didn't, but you did." He stepped into the rain again, and this time she watched him go, not with anger, but with a question. The city glowed beneath Callum's penthouse window, but inside everything felt dimmer. He sat on the leather couch, a tumbler of untouched bourbon in his hand. The suit he wore earlier was draped over the back of a chair. Now he sat in a plain t-shirt and joggers, barefoot, raw, not curated. His phone buzzed. He didn't check it. He couldn't. All he kept hearing were the words Imani had whispered last night. You'll have to earn everything. And he wanted to. For once in his life, he wanted something not because it made business sense, but because it made his soul ache. The feel of her lips still lingered. It hadn't been a kiss of reunion. It was a wound reopening, one that demanded truth. She had pulled away with tears in her eyes and fire in her voice. Don't just say things, Callum. Do better. And he had nodded. But words came easier than change. He knew that. Callum, we need clarity, said the CFO, sliding forward a contract proposal. Asia wants a firm decision. Either we acquire Lancer Technologies this quarter or we risk losing leverage. Callum stared at the document, but wasn't really reading. A junior associate cleared her throat. Should I reschedule your daycare visits to make room for a Tokyo meeting next Friday? No, Callum said abruptly. The room went still. No meetings before 11. And block out Soraya's birthday, permanently. A senior partner raised a brow. Personal time during a merger, sir? Callum looked up. His voice was calm. Yes. Mark it down. Personal time. Callum returned again, like clockwork. He didn't announce himself anymore. He just showed up, sat quietly at the back of music class, folded little origami frogs, while Soraya hummed. He wasn't trying to impress Imani. He was trying to be real. And that was harder than any merger. That evening, Imani was locking up her car when she noticed Callum still, sitting in his own vehicle, just parked, staring at the steering wheel. She tapped his window. He looked up, startled, rolled it down. You okay? She asked. He nodded once, just breathing. You looked like you were drowning. Callum offered a dry laugh. Sometimes I think I've been drowning in suits for years. Imani leaned against the car door. Then, take them off. He raised a brow. She smirked. Metaphorically. Right. They stood there in the orange hue of a setting sun, the moment strange and soft. I was 13 when I decided who I needed to become, Callum said quietly. Imani listened. I watched my father fire a man for crying after his daughter died. Said emotions were a luxury we couldn't afford. That day, I promised myself I'd never need anyone. I'd never crack. Her lips parted, but she said nothing. Callum continued. Then I met you, and suddenly, I wanted things I'd buried. He looked at her, and that scared the hell out of me. Imani climbed into the passenger seat. They sat there quietly, no music, just shared silence. Why are you really here? She asked finally. He turned to her. Because when Soraya smiled at me, I realized what I'd missed. And I don't want to miss another smile. Another note she plays, another chance to show her I'm more than a man who wears a suit and disappears. Imani's eyes didn't soften, but they didn't harden either. You broke me once, she whispered, and I'll spend every day proving I'll never do it again, he said. Don't say it unless you mean it. I've never meant anything more. It was quiet. Soraya had long since fallen asleep, curled up under her pink sheets with her toy violin beside her. Imani stood by the kitchen sink, rinsing out her teacup, the silence heavy but oddly peaceful. A knock came. Gentle this time. She didn't ask who it was. She already knew. When she opened the door, Callum was standing there. No umbrella, just hands in his jacket pockets and eyes that held too much. She didn't speak, just stepped aside. Callum walked in and looked around. The apartment was modest but warm, soft lighting, Soraya's drawings taped to the walls, a bookshelf stuffed with old music sheets. He turned to her. I didn't mean to come so late. You're lucky she's asleep, Imani replied. He nodded. I needed to see you. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Why? Because I can't keep acting like I'm not thinking about you. A pause. She blinked once. Thinking doesn't fix 6 years. I know. But this, being around you, it's doing something to me. Maybe it's guilt. No. He stepped closer. It's us. You and me. Imani laughed once, low, bitter. There was a you and me. In a city you ran from. In a night you never returned to. I didn't think I deserved you. And now I know I don't. But I'm here anyway. Her breath hitched. He kept going. I wake up thinking about your laugh, about how you used to press your fingers between your eyebrows when you were thinking, how you would sing to the moon in Milan like it owed you a song back. Imani's chest rose and fell. You think that's enough? She asked. No, he said, but it's real. She didn't move. Neither did he, but their energy did. It surged, and when she finally stepped toward him, it was slow, like walking to a cliff's edge. Then, her lips found his, fierce, familiar, desperate. He pulled her close instantly, one hand around her waist, the other cupping her jaw. Their mouths moved like they were arguing and reconciling at the same time. Years collapsed into seconds. Pain turned into hunger. He pushed her gently back against the kitchen wall, and her hands slipped under his coat. He kissed her like he needed to erase every time he had walked away. Her robe slipped slightly off her shoulder. He kissed the exposed skin there with reverence, like he was trying to write his apology in heat and devotion. She gasped when his lips trailed down her neck. Say it, he whispered. I should stop this, she breathed. Then say it, he whispered again. She looked at him, trembling. I should, she repeated, but her hands tugged at his shirt instead. That was her answer. He scooped her up in his arms, gently, but with purpose, laid her down on the couch. Their mouths didn't break. He kissed her with a mix of reverence and regret, as though he was trying to remember every inch of her and let her forget none of him. She arched into him as his hands explored her curves, familiar, yet changed. Motherhood hadn't made her less radiant. It made her powerful, real. He took his time, worshipped every scar, every soft place, every shiver. Afterward, they lay together, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy circles on her bare back. No promises were made. No future was declared. It was just breath and warmth and silence, until Imani finally spoke. You can't make love to me and expect it to solve everything. I don't, he said softly, but it's the only truth I've known in years. She sighed. This doesn't mean we're anything. I know, but it means something. He nodded. To me, it means everything. From the other room, Soraya's nightlight began to play its soft lullaby. They both looked toward the hallway. Imani slowly sat up, wrapping the throw blanket around herself. Callum sat beside her, shirt still open, hair tousled. You should go, she said gently. He nodded, stood, but before he left, she turned. I don't hate you anymore. He met her eyes. That's more than I deserve. The sun poured through the kitchen window, and the smell of pancakes filled the air. Soraya sat at the counter in her pajamas, legs swinging as she scribbled on a sheet of white paper with a red crayon. Imani flipped a pancake with one hand while checking her phone with the other. Mommy, Soraya said suddenly, head still down. Why does Mr. Callum look like me? The spatula paused in midair. Imani turned slowly. What? Soraya looked up innocently. Like, our chins. See? She pointed to her drawing. Same. Imani placed the spatula down gently. Sweetheart, why are you thinking about that? I was looking in the mirror yesterday, and when Mr. Callum smiled at me, it looked like my smile smiling back. Imani sat beside her, heartbeat quickening. People can look alike sometimes, she offered. Even strangers? Yes, it happens, but he's not a stranger. Imani blinked. He's someone who cares about you. Soraya tapped her chin thoughtfully. Is he family? Imani forced a smile. He's important. That's all. The little girl tilted her head. He laughs at my jokes even when they're not funny, because he likes your spirit. Soraya leaned closer. Do you like him? Imani hesitated. The little girl didn't wait for an answer. She picked up another crayon and began drawing again. I'm making a picture of us, Mommy, Soraya, and Mr. Callum. In the living room, Imani folded laundry while Soraya sprawled out on the rug, deep in her coloring project. I'm giving him glasses. He doesn't wear glasses, not real ones. Cool ones. Imani smiled. Soraya looked up. If he's not my daddy, why does he act like one? Imani froze. The air turned still. Sweetheart. She began, then stopped. Soraya studied her. He brings snacks. He listens. He calls me Star. He even tried to braid my hair. He was really bad at it. Imani chuckled softly. He's trying. Are you mad at him? Imani lowered her hands into the laundry basket. No, I'm just still figuring things out. Imani stood by the daycare's entrance, helping Soraya out of the car. Callum was already waiting by the art room, dressed more casually than usual, white polo shirt, beige pants, and sneakers. He looked less like a billionaire and more like a volunteer dad. Soraya ran up to him. Mr. Callum, guess what? What? He crouched to her level. I made a picture of you with cool glasses. He laughed. Do I look awesome? You look like my favorite character in my book. Imani approached slowly. Callum stood, meeting her gaze. She's asking questions, Imani said quietly. His expression shifted. What kind? She's trying to connect dots. And I don't know how long I can keep dodging the truth. Callum nodded. I'll follow your lead. Whatever you decide. Imani looked at him. She deserves answers, just not all at once. Callum sat on a beanbag with Soraya in his lap, holding an oversized picture book. Once upon a time, there was a giraffe who couldn't stop dancing, he read. That's you, Soraya whispered. Me. You keep moving your head like a giraffe when you read. He burst out laughing. You're not wrong. Imani stood across the room, arms folded, watching them. She didn't smile. Not this time. She just felt it, the ease, the natural bond, and the quiet ache of what had been missing for too long. That evening, after pickup, Callum and Imani walked toward the parking lot together. You know, she said slowly, you used to talk like you were allergic to children. I was afraid of breaking them, he replied. And now, I realize I was already broken. They stopped beside her car. She adores you, Imani said. I don't take that lightly. She thinks you're magic. Callum smiled faintly. She's not wrong. Imani looked away, then added softly, neither is she. The children sat in a half circle, fidgeting with their instruments while Imani tuned the class violin. Callum had arrived early again, not in a suit, not in his usual polished silence. This time, he brought juice boxes and a storybook. Imani glanced at him from across the room. She didn't smile, but she didn't stop him either. All right. Who's ready for a story? Callum asked, as he knelt beside the reading rug. Me, Soraya shouted, sliding next to him. A boy with gap teeth grinned. Can you do voices? Callum smirked. Only if you promise not to laugh at my frog voice. Imani sat in the back, arms folded, silently observing. Callum opened the book. Once upon a time, there was a frog who couldn't ribbit. Gasps from the kids. He tried and tried, but all that came out was. He paused dramatically. Meow. The class burst into laughter. Even Imani's lips twitched. Soraya leaned her head against Callum's arm. You're funny. Later, during cleanup, Callum quietly rolled up his sleeves and began wiping down tables with a wet cloth. One of the teachers whispered to Imani, Is he a parent volunteer? Imani paused. Something like that. She watched as Callum helped a little girl tie her shoelaces, gently, patiently. She remembered when he couldn't sit still for 5 minutes in Milan without checking his phone. Now, he didn't even look at it once. Callum and Imani stood near the coffee machine. The room was empty except for them. You're getting good at the frog voice, Imani said, sipping tea. I've been practicing in the mirror. She smirked. That explains the mirror fog. He looked at her. You're letting me in a little. Imani didn't deny it. Instead, she asked, Why are you still here? Because for the first time, I'm building something that doesn't collapse when I leave the room. He paused. Because I want Soraya to grow up knowing her dad didn't just show up for birthdays. He showed up for ordinary Wednesdays. Imani looked down. You can't undo what's done. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to do something now. That afternoon, Soraya sat with crayons again. This time, she was drawing a house. 2 big windows, a sun, a small garden, and 3 figures out front. Imani glanced over. What's that one? Our future house. Oh, yep. It has Daddy's juice boxes, your music room, and my art studio. Imani's hand froze. Daddy? Soraya didn't look up. Yeah, Mr. Callum. Imani knelt slowly. What makes you say that, baby? He's here, every day, like daddies are. After class, Callum waited near the entrance. Imani stepped out, coat draped over her arm, eyes unreadable. Soraya called you daddy today. Callum's heart skipped. I didn't correct her, she added. He nodded. I'll follow your lead. Imani looked at him. You're doing a good job. Thank you. I didn't say I forgive you. I didn't ask. She held his gaze. But I see you. Callum's voice was rough. I've never wanted to be seen more. The rain had passed, and golden light flooded the art room. The kids were quietly focused, dabbing paint on canvases with more color than coordination. At the back of the room, Soraya sat on a stool, tongue poking out slightly in concentration. She had one mission: finish her family portrait. Imani noticed the unusual quiet and walked over. What are you working on? Soraya covered it quickly. No peeking. Imani raised a brow. Secrets? Only until it's done. Across the room, Callum was helping a boy clean his hands. He glanced over and caught Imani watching him. Their eyes held for just a moment. After class, as kids packed up their belongings, Soraya walked up to both Callum and Imani. Ta-da! She beamed, holding up a canvas. Imani blinked. Callum tilted his head. 3 figures were painted in bright colors. A woman in a long purple dress, a tall man with a gray shirt and dark hair, and a little girl in the middle wearing a red crown. Below the figures, in blocky child handwriting, my family. Callum swallowed. Imani's lips parted, stunned silent. I made Mommy tall because she's the boss, Soraya explained, and I gave Mr. Callum nice hair because he always smells good. Callum laughed softly. That's incredibly detailed. And I gave myself a crown, she said proudly, because I'm the glue. Imani knelt down beside her. Baby, what made you paint this? Soraya looked between them and said quietly, because this is what it feels like. Imani stood, heart in her throat. Callum didn't speak. There was nothing to say that didn't feel too big or too soon, but everything was already spoken. Through the brushstrokes, through the child's voice, through the crown she placed on herself. Imani stood at the sink, rinsing out paint trays. Callum walked in, holding the now dried painting in his hand. She's telling us who we are, he said. I know. She's not confused. Imani leaned on the counter. That's what terrifies me. Why? Because children trust faster than adults, and they break harder when that trust is betrayed. Callum nodded. Then, I won't break it. You say that like it's easy. I say it because it's true. She turned to him. She's already given you a name you haven't earned yet. Callum's voice was quiet. Then let me earn it. Imani buckled Soraya into her booster seat as the sun dipped low in the sky. From the back seat, the little girl asked, Mommy, is he really my daddy? Imani froze. The words hung in the air, heavy and impossible to ignore. She turned slowly. Why are you asking? Because I feel like he is. Imani looked into those hazel eyes, so much like his. She brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead. Would you be happy if he was? Soraya nodded. Yes, because I already love him like that. Imani blinked back emotion and closed the door gently. That evening, after Soraya had fallen asleep, Imani stood on her balcony, phone pressed to her ear. Tim, she said quietly. On the other end, Temperance sighed. You sound like you're unraveling. I don't know what to do. What does your heart say? that I want to protect her. And what does her heart say? Imani looked toward the window where Soraya's crown-shaped nightlight glowed. She wants to belong. Temperance's voice softened. Then maybe you don't have to decide for her. Maybe you just have to walk beside her. Later that night, Imani picked up her phone. Typed, deleted, typed again. Imani, she asked if you're her daddy. Pause. Callum, what did you say? Imani, I told her I'd answer soon. Callum, I'm ready for whatever she needs to hear. Imani, are you sure? Callum, I've never been more sure of anything. The sun filtered through the trees as Imani sipped her coffee under the courtyard awning. From across the lawn, she could hear the kids playing and one adult voice pretending to be a pirate. Who stole the crayons, matey? Was it you, Princess Soraya? Giggling erupted. Imani turned her head slightly and smiled without realizing. Callum wore a red scarf on his head and a fake cardboard telescope taped together by the toddlers. He was ridiculous, and yet, he looked like he belonged there. When the kids ran off to snack time, Callum walked over, still wearing the pirate scarf. Imani raised a brow. New career path? He shrugged, catching his breath. Turns out, toddlers make great crewmates. She looked at him for a long moment. You're not just showing up. You're present. I made a decision, he said, to humiliate yourself in pirate gear. He chuckled. That too. But mostly, to show her I'm here for every laugh, every question, every sticky hand. Imani sipped her coffee. It's more than I expected. Good, he said, because it's not temporary. Throughout the week, she watched him. He arrived before class started. Helped set up snack trays. Read books. Badly, but enthusiastically. He even took notes during music lessons, just to help Soraya practice at home. One afternoon, Soraya handed Imani a paper flower. Mr. Callum helped me fold it. He said if you put it in your room, it'll remind you of brave things. Imani held it for a long time before placing it gently in her handbag. Temperance noticed too. They met up for tea that Thursday evening. He's consistent? She asked. Every day. No excuses? None. Temperance leaned forward. And what about you? Are you still holding him at arm's length? Imani stirred her tea slowly. I don't know how to drop my guard. You already did. That night. Imani blushed. That was a mistake. Was it? Temperance pressed. Or was it the first honest thing you've done with him since Milan? Later that night, Imani watched Soraya sleep. She ran her fingers through her daughter's curls and whispered, You're changing everything, baby. Her phone lit up on the table. A message from Callum. Callum, she said I'm her favorite big person today. I almost cried. Imani, you're earning it. Callum, I'm not stopping. Imani, I believe you. It was the first time she'd said that. To anyone. In years. Saturday afternoon, Imani and Soraya arrived at the park with a picnic basket. Callum was already there, laying out a blanket with embarrassing precision. Is that color-coded? Imani asked. Callum smirked. She said purple is the royal color. So purple napkins it is. Soraya twirled in her dress. Today's a princess picnic. He even brought teacups. They ate sandwiches, played catch, and lay under the sky tracing clouds. At one point, Soraya curled up between them and said, Can we always do this? Imani looked at Callum. His hand found hers, quietly. They didn't say yes, but neither of them said no. That night, Callum, I've never had this, the quiet joy. It's new. It's everything. Imani, you're doing more than showing up. You're becoming someone worth depending on. Callum, I want to be that man. For her, for you. Imani, then keep showing up. Callum, I will. Every day. Rain tapped against the windows as Imani curled into the corner of her best friend's couch, a cup of ginger tea warming her hands. Temperance sat across from her with one eyebrow raised. You're in deep, she said. Imani exhaled. It's not like that. Temperance sipped her tea. You kissed him. Was weeks ago. You kissed him again. Imani blinked. How did you know? You're wearing your soft hoodie. That's your I feel guilty but it felt good hoodie. Imani groaned. You're insufferable. And you're in denial. Temperance leaned forward. Do you trust him? I want to. That's not what I asked. I'm trying. Still not what I asked. Imani put the cup down. He's showing up. He's consistent. Soraya adores him. And Temperance waited. I feel like a door inside me has been cracked open, and part of me wants to close it again, slam it, even. Why haven't you? Because he's not the same man. Temperance raised an eyebrow. So maybe you shouldn't be the same woman. Imani stared at the floor. I used to believe love could fix anything, she said. Then I gave it to someone who vanished before sunrise. I had to raise a child with no clue if he'd ever show his face again. But he did. After 6 years. Temperance's voice softened. And he's not running now. No, Imani admitted. But I am. Temperance sat back. So, stop running. Imani's eyes glistened. You're scared, Temperance said gently. And you should be. But maybe, you're also healing. Temperance stood and grabbed her phone. Give me your calendar. What? You heard me. Why? Because if he's serious, it's time to move beyond daycare visits and princess picnics. Imani narrowed her eyes. What are you planning? A dinner. At your place, just the 3 of you. A test. I don't need to test him. Temperance stared. Then what are you afraid of? Imani hesitated. I'm afraid it'll feel real. And I won't know what to do with that. Temperance handed her the phone. Figure it out. Because that little girl already decided. Imani sat in her own apartment now, the lamp casting soft light across the table. She looked at the calendar on her phone, scrolled past meetings and music class prep, paused at Saturday, typed one word, dinner. She stared at it for a long time, then added a name, Callum. Imani, are you free Saturday night? Callum, for you and Soraya? Always. Imani, just us 3. Quiet. No storybooks. No picnics. Callum, are you sure? Imani, no. But I'm not saying no. Callum, I'll bring dessert. Imani, if you burn it, you're banned from my kitchen. Callum, I'm already looking up recipes. Imani, brave move. Callum, I'd fight dragons if it meant sitting at your table. Imani tucked Soraya into bed, her thoughts spinning. The little girl peeked one eye open. Is Mr. Callum coming tomorrow? No, baby. Next day. Imani smiled. Saturday. Yay, Soraya whispered. Tell him to bring cookies. Imani leaned down and kissed her forehead. I think he already knows. Behind every guarded woman is a friend who sees straight through her. And sometimes, love doesn't knock twice. Sometimes it waits, right at the table you've been afraid to set. If someone once pushed you toward healing when you resisted, comment with a below. Tap like, and don't forget to subscribe. The next part is Saturday night, and hearts will either come together or fall apart. Warm light spilled out through the open doorway. The dinner dishes had been cleared. Soraya had fallen asleep on the couch mid-cartoon, her little crown slipping down her forehead. Callum stood beside the porch rail, gazing out at the quiet street. Imani joined him, 2 mugs in hand. Chamomile, she said, handing him one. Are you trying to put me to sleep? No. She smiled softly. I'm trying to calm both of us. They stood side by side, sipping in silence. The night was cool, still. No meetings, no music class, no distractions, just space. Thank you for tonight, Callum said finally. For letting me in. Imani nodded. You earned it. He looked at her, surprised. That almost sounded like a compliment. Almost, she teased. They both laughed, low and easy. It wasn't forced. It was familiar. Callum leaned against the porch post. I kept looking at that table tonight. Why? Because we were around it like we'd done it 1,000 times before. passed plates, shared food, like a family. Imani glanced toward the living room window, where Soraya lay curled under a blanket. It felt natural, she admitted. Did it scare you? A little. Me too. Another pause. Then Imani asked, do you ever wish you could redo it, Milan? Callum looked down. Every day. Where would you have gone that morning? He met her eyes. Nowhere. I would have stayed in that room, he continued. Missed the calls, canceled the flight, told you I was terrified of how much I needed you. Imani didn't speak. I told myself walking away was strength, Callum added. But now I know it was cowardice. She turned to him fully. You didn't just walk away from me. He nodded slowly. I walked away from a daughter I never met. You left a hole she didn't even know existed. Callum's voice broke. I'm trying to fill it now. You can't fill it with pancakes and bedtime stories alone. I know. You'll need patience, stability, forgiveness. Callum swallowed. And you? I'll need time. The wind rustled a hanging chime. Callum stepped a little closer. I know I hurt you, and I'm not rushing you. But tonight gave me hope. Imani's eyes softened. What kind of hope? That maybe I could walk into your kitchen one morning, and it wouldn't feel like a visit anymore. She didn't answer, but she didn't back away either. He placed his mug down. You have every right to shut the door on me again, he said. Imani stared at him. But I didn't. No, he whispered. You didn't. And that truth hovered between them. 1,000 unsaid things hung in the air. Imani took a deep breath. Do you want to stay tonight? Callum blinked. Are you sure? I don't want you to leave. He didn't speak. He just stepped forward, into her. She wrapped her arms around his waist. He held her like she was something sacred. Callum carried Soraya gently to her bed, tucking her in with care. Imani watched from the doorway, heart aching at how natural it looked. He kissed Soraya's forehead. Good night, Star. Back in the living room, Imani opened her arms. Callum stepped in. This time, when their bodies pressed close, it wasn't about apologies. It was about presence, and a future that was no longer being avoided. Children dashed through plastic tunnels and swung from monkey bars, laughter echoing through the mild spring air. Callum sat on a bench with Imani, both of them watching Soraya race in circles, arms out like wings. She turned 7 next week, Imani said, eyes tracking her daughter's joyful sprint. 7, Callum repeated, surprised. Already? Imani smiled softly. I blinked, and she grew up. Callum looked at her. Let me plan it. Imani turned her head. Her birthday. I want to make it memorable. Callum, I'm not saying I'll handle everything. I'm saying, let's do it together. Later that evening, Soraya sat cross-legged on the rug, flipping through a catalog of party decorations. I want balloons, she said with authority. You'll get balloons. Callum nodded. And a cake with sparkles, but not the weird kind that tastes like glue. Noted. Imani chuckled. Soraya paused. Can it be at Willow Oaks? Imani blinked. Why there? Because that's where he met me. It's special. Callum looked at Imani, quietly waiting. She exhaled, then smiled. Okay. Willow Oaks it is. They spent the next few days in full planning mode. Callum took charge of the entertainment, hiring a magician, organizing a mini dance floor, and even bringing in a small petting zoo Soraya had once mentioned in passing. Imani focused on the food, theme, and favors. Rainbow-colored musical instruments and glitter hats. They moved around each other easily, like they'd been doing this for years. No tension, no awkwardness, just synergy, and something softer growing beneath it all. On Thursday night, Callum and Imani walked out of a party supply store, arms full of bags. She carried streamers and confetti. He had boxes of paper crowns and disposable plates. Remind me again, Callum said, why we needed 3 different shades of pink. Because the 7-year-old queen demanded it. She's got high standards. She gets it from me. He laughed, clearly. They stopped beside her car, both catching their breath. You know, Imani said, you're good at this. At buying glitter? At being part of something. Callum looked at her, his voice steady. I want to be part of everything. The night before the party, they set up the daycare's courtyard. Callum adjusted the banners while Imani arranged the tables. Fairy lights hung overhead, and each chair had a name tag written in Soraya's favorite glitter pen. She's going to love this, Imani whispered. Callum walked over. It's not just for her. She raised an eyebrow. It's for you too. He held up a small photo booth sign that read, The Birthday Queen and Her Kingdom. Imani chuckled. That's cheesy. It's accurate. That night, back at Imani's apartment, Soraya jumped onto the bed in her pajamas. Tomorrow's the best day ever. Callum stood in the doorway, watching the two of them laugh beneath fairy lights she'd insisted on hanging in her room. Imani turned to him. You okay? He nodded. Just taking this in. She walked over, placed her hand on his chest. You've done good, Callum. He held her hand. She's changing me. Imani tilted her head. No, she's revealing you. The courtyard shimmered under strands of fairy lights and sunlight. Balloons bobbed in the breeze. Children wore tiny plastic crowns, running around with musical noisemakers. Staff, residents, and family friends gathered with cheerful smiles and full hands, snacks, drinks, and gifts. At the center of it all, Soraya twirled in her layered tulle skirt. A paper sash that read Birthday Queen draped across her chest. Callum stood by the refreshment table, straightening cups, smoothing out the tablecloth for the 5th time. Imani walked up beside him. You're nervous, terrified, he replied. Just be honest. That's the plan. Moments before the cake, Imani gently tapped a glass with a spoon. Everyone, thank you so much for coming. Today means the world to Soraya, and to us. Callum stepped forward. All heads turned. He cleared his throat. If I may? Imani nodded, stepping aside. Callum looked at Soraya, then at the crowd, then back at Imani. His voice steady, but low. Some of you know me only as the man who brings juice boxes to music class, or wears pirate scarves to story time, he began, drawing laughter. But I haven't always been that man. And truthfully, for a long time, I didn't know how to be. He glanced at Soraya, who beamed at him. I made mistakes, big ones. I left when I should have stayed. I built a life on numbers and noise, while missing the only music that really mattered. Eyes softened around the courtyard. I'm not here to erase the past, he continued. I'm here to build something new, every single day. To earn this crown she gave me, not through words, but presence. He turned to Imani. To you, I owe more than apologies. I owe consistency. I owe accountability. I owe love that doesn't disappear in the morning. She blinked rapidly, lips parting but no words coming. Callum looked back at everyone. I'm not the perfect father or partner, but I'm learning to be the kind of man who doesn't run, who shows up and stays. For a moment, no one moved. Then someone clapped. Then another. And another. The courtyard filled with warm applause, not loud, but full of approval. Callum stepped back, breath catching in his throat. Soraya ran to him. She jumped into his arms. You're the best, she whispered in his ear. He held her tight. As the applause faded and cake was being served, Imani walked up to him. She stood in front of him, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Then, without a word, she reached out and fixed the crooked paper crown Soraya had stuck on his head. You did good, she said quietly. I meant every word. I know, she replied. Do you believe me? She didn't answer immediately. Then, I'm starting to. An older woman from the care wing, Mrs. Beasley, approached with a cane. Young man, she said, that was one of the finest speeches I've heard since my wedding in '67. Callum chuckled. Thank you. She patted his shoulder. Don't mess this up. Yes, ma'am. Also, she added, next time bring lemon squares. Your brownies were too dry. Callum winced. Noted. Imani stifled a laugh behind her hand. The party faded as the sun dipped. Imani and Callum stayed back to help clear decorations. He folded chairs while she boxed leftover cupcakes. You think she'll remember today? He asked. Imani glanced at him. She'll remember how she felt. They stacked the last of the chairs. "I'll be here tomorrow," Callum said. Imani nodded. "I'll be here the day after that, too." "I know." He reached out gently and touched her hand. "Imani, can I ask you something?" She looked at him. "Not now," she said softly, "but maybe soon." The birthday banners were still up. Glitter from yesterday's celebration sparkled faintly on the living room rug as sunlight poured through the curtains. Imani stirred her tea in the kitchen, while Soraya sat at the dining table with a crayon and a notepad. Callum, in sweatpants and a plain t-shirt, stood nearby trying to fix a crooked drawer in the hallway. "Why are there stickers inside this drawer?" he asked. Imani smirked. "Because she believes every space deserves color, even the ones no one sees. Especially those." "Mommy," Soraya called. "Yes, love." "I wrote something." Imani walked over and crouched beside her. Soraya held out the paper. In wobbly letters, written in purple crayon, "Can Daddy live with us now?" Imani froze. Callum turned around slowly. Soraya looked between them. "I just thought, since he's always here anyway, and he makes the pancakes now, and he tucks me in, and he fixed the wobbly chair, maybe he should just stay forever." Imani sat down beside her daughter, carefully folding the note. "Baby, that's a big wish." Soraya tilted her head. "But it's not a hard one." Callum stepped forward. "Hey, Star." She turned toward him. "I'd love nothing more than to be with you every day. But it's also important that Mommy feels ready too." Soraya looked at Imani. "Are you ready?" Imani's lips parted, then closed. Her eyes found Callum's, and something passed between them. Not pressure, not expectation, just trust. Later, Soraya was in her room, humming and pretending her dolls were teachers. Imani and Callum stood in the hallway, the note resting on the kitchen counter behind them. "She doesn't see hesitation," Imani said. "She only sees love. That's what scares me." Callum nodded. "You don't need to give an answer right now." "I know," she said softly. "But I do need to decide if I'm still living in the past, or if I'm ready to build something better than it." He didn't push, just waited. That evening, the three of them walked through the park. Soraya skipped ahead, chasing ducks with a juice box in hand. Callum and Imani strolled behind, slower. "I miss this," she said. "Which part?" "Walking beside someone without wondering how long they'll stay." "I'm here. I see that now." Imani stopped walking. "I can't promise everything at once." "I'm not asking for that. But I can promise you this," she added. "We're not just surviving anymore." Callum's voice was low. "Then what are we doing?" "Becoming." Back home, after bath time and bedtime songs, Soraya curled beneath her blanket with both parents sitting on either side. "Did you think about it?" she whispered. Imani brushed her hair back. "I did, and..." Callum smiled gently. "We both think your wish is beautiful." Imani leaned in. "And we'll keep working on it. Together." Soraya yawned. "Okay, but no more taking turns with pancakes. Daddy burns his..." Callum laughed. "I do not." "You totally do." Imani kissed her daughter's cheek. "Sleep, my little queen." Back in the hallway, Imani turned to Callum. "She's further along than both of us." "She always has been." Imani stepped closer. "You didn't flinch when she called you Daddy." "I never will." "I'm not promising keys to the apartment," she added. "I'm not asking..." She paused. "But I am asking you to stay tonight." Callum reached for her hand. "Then, I will..." Some wishes are blown into candles. Some are whispered into pillows. But the most powerful ones? They're written in crayon, by children who see the world not for what it is, but for what it could be. "I packed the blue pencil box, not the pink one," Callum called out from the kitchen. "You packed both, Daddy," Soraya replied, dragging her sparkly backpack toward the door. Imani smiled as she buttoned up her blazer. Their mornings had changed. Callum was no longer just a visitor. He was a rhythm, a steady hand pouring cereal, tying shoelaces, double-checking ponytails. He now shared the small moments, without being asked, without keeping score. "I spy with my little eye something white, Soraya grinned from the back seat. The clouds? Callum guessed. Nope. The crosswalk? Nope. Your teeth? Yes, she giggled, kicking her feet. Callum laughed and glanced at her in the rearview mirror. That one was sneaky. Imani, riding shotgun, chuckled. You've been outwitted by a 6-year-old again. And I'll be outwitted again tomorrow. They pulled up to the school gate. Soraya leaned forward. Group hug? All three wrapped arms over the gear shift in the front seat, a tangled cluster of warmth and love. That evening, homework was spread across the dining table. 2 + 2 is easy, Soraya announced. Callum raised an eyebrow. Then let's test that confidence. He scribbled on a flashcard. What's 5 + 3? She furrowed her brow. Think of your fingers. I only have 5. Callum extended his hand. Borrow mine. Imani shook her head, sipping her tea. This is how she becomes a negotiator. She already is, Callum replied, grinning. After Soraya's bedtime story and prayers, Callum lingered in the kitchen while Imani rinsed dishes. She called me daddy 3 times today. She knows what love looks like, Imani said softly. He dried his hands. Do you? She paused. I'm learning. Every day. Their eyes held. No pressure. No demands. Just quiet honesty. Schedules became shared. Doctor appointments were attended together. Soraya's school project on family was now a trio portrait drawn in bold strokes. Callum helped build a science fair volcano, while Imani coached her through public speaking. There were disagreements too, over screen time, sugar snacks, bedtime routines. But they disagreed as partners, not as people afraid of each other. On Fridays, they walked, not out of tradition, but out of ease. One such evening, under amber streetlights, they strolled behind Soraya, who danced ahead with a flashlight. Does this feel real to you? Imani asked quietly. Callum nodded. Like something I never knew I needed. I'm scared of getting used to it. You're allowed to be, and what if it disappears again? Callum stopped, turning to face her. Then I'll stay long enough that it never does. Imani exhaled, and without another word, slipped her hand into his. Later that night, as Soraya slept, they found themselves on the couch, music playing low. She leaned into him. He didn't move. It was the kind of silence that didn't need filling. Just being there was enough. Her head rested against his chest. His arm curved around her waist. I used to believe love had to be loud, Imani whispered. Turns out, it's better when it's consistent. He kissed her forehead, and she let herself breathe. They weren't labeling it. They weren't rushing it. But the toothbrush he kept in her bathroom no longer sat in the travel case. His jacket now hung beside hers. Her coffee was now brewed for 2. They were becoming a them, not by declaration, but by design. Callum stood outside Soraya's school with a form in hand. Emergency contact update. He paused at the signature line labeled, Father. It was blank. Imani walked out beside him, holding Soraya's jacket. You didn't sign? She asked gently. Callum stared at the paper. I want to, but I don't just want to be the emergency contact. I want to be her father. Legally. Imani blinked, startled. You mean? Yes, he said firmly. I want Soraya to carry my last name. I want her to know officially that I will never walk away again. The next morning, they entered a law firm tucked in the heart of the city. The walls were beige, the lighting soft. Callum held Soraya's hand. Imani walked beside them, a bundle of nerves held tightly behind a calm face. They were ushered into a conference room. The attorney, Miss Gaines, had warm eyes and a firm voice. So, you're looking to establish legal paternity and initiate a name change for the child? She asked, scanning the forms. Callum nodded. Yes, I want it to be on paper. I want to be on record, not just emotionally but legally. Soraya sat at the table, swinging her legs, crayon in hand, already sketching on the back of a legal pad. I want to be called Soraya Drain now, she declared mid-doodle, not even looking up. Callum chuckled. No hesitation, huh? Miss Gaines smiled. Children have a way of knowing what they want. Imani leaned in. What does the process involve? Since there's no prior legal father on record, this will move quicker than contested cases. We'll draft a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity, file it with the court, and then proceed to the name change request. She handed them a packet of documents. After they stepped outside the office, they sat on a bench nearby. Imani looked at Callum, her tone serious. You're really sure about this? I'm not doing it to win points. I'm doing it because every time she calls me daddy, I want the world to know she's mine. Imani hesitated. You know this means you're taking on every right and every responsibility. Callum turned to face her. I've already taken them in my heart. This just makes it law. She reached out, squeezed his hand. Then let's do it. That evening at home, Soraya sat cross-legged on the floor, a marker in her hand and paper sprawled out in front of her. Mommy, if my name changes, will my drawing still be mine? Imani smiled. Of course, sweetheart. Your drawings, your toys, your heart, they all stay yours. What if I forget how to spell the new one? Callum knelt beside her and drew the letters one by one. D-R-A-I-N-E. Let's practice together. And just so you know, he said, tapping her nose, I'm keeping your old name safe in my memory forever. Soraya grinned. Like a secret code? Exactly. 2 weeks later, they returned to the lawyer's office. Imani reviewed the final forms carefully. Callum signed the declaration, steady hand, eyes focused. Soraya watched with awe. Is this like signing to be my superhero? She asked. Callum smiled at her. Even better. It's signing up to be yours for life. Ms. Gaines handed Soraya a copy of the document. Do you want to keep this? Soraya nodded solemnly and hugged it to her chest like a treasure. They stopped at a corner ice cream shop afterward. Imani got her usual vanilla cone. Callum ordered pistachio. Soraya, naturally, chose bubble gum with extra sprinkles. She held up her cone and made a toast to new names and big hearts. Callum clinked his cone to hers. To family. Imani smiled. To the child who brought us back together. They all took a bite at once, laughter echoing over the sound of the soft-serve machine humming in the background. Weeks later, they sat in the courtroom, just a small administrative hearing. No drama, no fanfare, just truth, ink, and a quiet tear on Imani's cheek when the judge stamped the name change order. The clerk read aloud, "The child formerly known as Soraya Rhodes shall henceforth be known as Soraya Drain." Soraya beamed. Can I write that on all my notebooks now? Every single one, Imani whispered. Callum whispered, I hope one day you use that name to write a book. Soraya blinked. Or run a cookie shop. They laughed. On the ride home, Soraya curled up in the back seat, clutching a file folder with her updated documents. She said softly, Yes, baby. Does this mean I belong to both of you, forever? Imani looked into the rearview mirror, meeting her daughter's eyes. It means we belong to you, forever. Callum reached across the center console and took Imani's hand. And in that moment, no last name ever felt more complete. Family isn't built by biology alone. It's built in courtrooms and car rides, in crayons scribbled on legal pads, in names spoken proudly and claimed with courage. The house was filled with soft music and the scent of rosemary chicken. The lights above the dining table cast a warm glow, and Soraya's giggles echoed from the living room. Callum stirred a pot on the stove, while Imani arranged cutlery with practiced grace. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't grand, but it was whole, and that made it everything. They gathered around the table, plates full, laughter light. Soraya told a long-winded story about a girl at school who tried to trade her lunch for a sticker shaped like a potato. Callum nearly choked on his water laughing. You're telling me a potato sticker beat chocolate pudding? She said it was limited edition. Soraya insisted, eyes wide with mock outrage. Imani smiled. What did you do? I kept my pudding and gave her my broccoli. Callum raised a hand for a high five. That's my girl. They ate slowly, enjoying the kind of peace that only comes after storms. After dessert, Soraya ran to her room with the speed of a child on a secret mission. "Stay right there," she shouted. Callum leaned back in his chair. "Should I be worried?" Imani shook her head. "If it involves glitter, maybe." Moments later, Soraya returned, her small hands gripping a wooden picture frame wrapped in pink ribbon. She placed it in the center of the table, like an offering. "I made this at school," she said proudly. Inside the frame was a crayon drawing. 3 stick figures stood beneath a bright yellow sun. One tall with curly brown hair, Imani; one taller, wearing a tie, Callum; and in the middle, holding both their hands, was Soraya, labeled in big wobbly letters. Below them, in purple marker, "My family." Imani's hand flew to her mouth. Callum stared at the picture, then at Soraya. "You drew this?" Soraya nodded. "I wanted us on the wall, just like other kids have at home." Imani's voice trembled. "Sweetheart, that's beautiful." Callum reached for her hand. "Can I hang this in my study?" Soraya grinned. "Only if you promise not to forget it's there." "Never," he whispered. Later that evening, after cleaning up and wiping sticky fingers, they sat together on the couch. Soraya snuggled between them, the picture frame cradled in her lap. She leaned against Callum's shoulder, eyelids heavy. Imani looked across at him, eyes full of something deeper than gratitude. "You're home now," she whispered. Callum didn't rush his reply. He placed his hand gently over Soraya's, then over Imani's. "I will never leave again." Silence followed, but not the heavy kind. It was the silence that settles when all the pieces finally fall into place. Once Soraya had been tucked into bed with her favorite plush bunny and the framed picture on her nightstand, Callum and Imani lingered in the hallway. "She really believes this is forever," Imani murmured. Callum nodded. "Because it is." Imani hesitated. "What if we mess up again?" He took her hands, firm but gentle. "Then we fix it. Together. That's what families do." She leaned her head against his chest. "Promise me this isn't just a season." Callum rested his chin on her hair. "It's a lifetime." The next day, Callum hung the frame on the wall in his office at the firm. It was the first thing clients saw when they walked in. No plaques, no awards, just 3 smiling stick figures in crayon. His assistant paused and tilted her head. "New addition?" Callum smiled. "The most important one." That night, Soraya started a new ritual. Every evening before dinner, she'd check the picture frame like a family portrait in a gallery. "Still us?" she'd ask. Imani always answered. Always. Callum would follow with, "Even if we add more stick figures one day." Soraya gasped, "Like a puppy?" Imani laughed. "Or a baby? Can we name it Glitter?" Callum raised an eyebrow. "Let's stick with food first." Weeks turned into a rhythm. No longer survival. No longer hope alone. Just rhythm. Callum adjusted his morning meetings to do school drop-offs. Imani rearranged her studio schedule so she could be home for bedtime stories. Soraya's picture frame stayed where it was, growing more sacred with every passing day. They were no longer 3 people trying to figure it out. They were a family that chose to, and that made all the difference. Spring had softened the garden with its tender green. Daisies bloomed along the stone path, and birds fluttered across the wooden fence that surrounded the daycare yard. It was quiet now. No squeals of children, no spilled juice boxes, no playful shouting. Just stillness, just meaning. Callum stood at the center of it, hands slightly trembling, breath coming in careful rhythm. This was the place he first laid eyes on Soraya. The place where everything had shifted, where fate whispered, "Look again." And today, it would witness the moment everything came full circle. He had told Imani they were stopping by the daycare to drop off a thank you gift for the staff. Soraya had skipped ahead, her curls bouncing, clutching a tray of homemade cookies. Imani had followed with a smile, hand loosely linked in Callum's. None of them expected the change waiting in the garden. There, beneath the tree where Soraya had once drawn hopscotch lines in chalk, now stood a small table draped in linen. A photo of the 3 of them sat beside a vase of yellow tulips, Imani's favorite. Soraya gasped. "Is there a party?" Imani turned to Callum, brows drawn. What is this? But Callum was already kneeling. Right there, on the soft grass that had witnessed both discovery and doubt. He looked up at Imani with nothing hidden, nothing guarded. Only truth, only hope. I left once, Callum began, his voice steady but full. And every second since, I've regretted the time we lost. The nights I wasn't there to tuck her in. The mornings I didn't get to kiss you before you started your day. The birthdays, the belly laughs, the quiet little victories. I missed them all. Imani's lips parted slightly, but no words came. I can't change the past, he continued, but I can spend forever honoring what we have now. I can be there, not just as Soraya's father, but as your partner, your friend, your husband. He pulled a ring from his pocket. Simple, classic, with 3 diamonds. For you, for me, for her. Soraya clapped her hands with glee. Is this like when they say yes in movies? Callum smiled at her, then returned his gaze to Imani. Marry me. Imani took a breath like it was her first in days. Her eyes glistened, not from surprise, but from the quiet recognition of a love that had fought its way home. You came back when you didn't have to, she said softly. I needed to, Callum replied. She dropped to her knees in front of him, not out of formality, but connection. You already have my heart. You've had it since the moment you reached for Soraya in that daycare hallway. She took the ring, slipped it on, and kissed him, deep, certain, and full of grace. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes, I'll marry you. Soraya squealed. We're gonna have cake, right? Engagement means cake. Callum scooped her up with one arm while holding Imani's hand with the other. I'll bake 3, he promised. Imani laughed. Let's leave the baking to the professionals. Soraya reached into her backpack and pulled out a crumpled paper with stick figures and hearts. I was gonna give you this later, but I think now's perfect. It read in colorful marker, Mommy plus Callum plus me equal to always. That evening, the 3 of them sat in the living room, FaceTiming Imani's parents. Her father squinted at the screen. Is that a ring I see? Her mother screamed so loud Soraya dropped her juice box. Callum, sheepish but smiling, held the phone steady. She said yes, and about time, her mom said, wiping a tear. I was about to propose on your behalf. Imani giggled. You almost beat him to it. Callum turned to Soraya. Should we tell them what you asked earlier? Soraya puffed up with pride. I asked if I could wear a tuxedo and a dress at the wedding. Once the calls ended, and Soraya had drifted to sleep, curled beside her plush giraffe, Callum and Imani sat in the garden again, just the 2 of them, under the early stars. Do you ever think about how it all began? She asked. Every day, he answered. She traced her fingers along his palm. We were so close to never knowing. Callum leaned in, his voice tender. But we did. We found each other again. That's what matters. Imani smiled. I'm glad you came back. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. I'm never leaving again. The framed drawing from Soraya now hung in their hallway. Next to it, Imani added a new one. 3 names, 3 dates, 1 sentence beneath. We choose each other. Every day. The sun broke gently through the clouds above Willow Oaks, a serene estate nestled at the edge of town. Not extravagant, but timeless. The garden glistened with early dew. White folding chairs curved in a crescent under the old oak tree. Ivy trailed the archway where Imani would walk. Soft string music floated in the breeze, blending with chirping birds. This wasn't a show. This was a promise. Callum stood near the altar in a navy suit, his nerves visible only in how often he adjusted his cufflinks. His best man whispered, She'll come. You're not dreaming. He smiled. I know. But it still feels like I don't deserve this. Behind the scenes, Soraya peeked from behind a curtain. Mommy looks like a princess, she whispered. Imani stepped into view, her dress soft ivory, flowing like breath. Not overly done, just radiant. She clutched a small bouquet of lilies, one for each season they had waited, each tear. Shed in silence, each morning Soraya asked, When will Callum come over again? Her father, eyes full of gentle pride, took her arm. "She's yours now," he said to Callum as he handed her over. Callum bowed his head. "Thank you. I won't fail her, or either of you." The officiant welcomed everyone. Only close family and a few friends were seated, those who had witnessed the ache, the hope, the rebuilding. Then came Soraya's moment. From the front row, she hopped up with her little pink toy violin. Everyone chuckled softly. Callum knelt beside her. "Ready, maestro?" Soraya giggled. "Let's make music." She dragged the bow across the strings, not quite in tune, but heartwarming. Every note seemed to stitch something invisible. Imani beamed. Callum wiped a tear. By the time she bowed at the end, the entire garden clapped. "She practiced that for weeks," whispered Imani to Callum. "She wanted to be the one to start our song." The officiant turned to Callum. He took Imani's hands. "Before I met you again, I thought my life was full, but it was noise. With you and Soraya, I found harmony. I was a chord without melody. Now we are a song, one I want to sing every day." Imani's eyes brimmed. She replied, her voice sure. "There was a time I stopped believing in lasting things. Until you returned. Until she called you Daddy, without needing to be told. We were broken pieces. But now we are one song." Soraya clapped again. "That was so pretty." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Callum laughed too. "You're the best chorus, sweetheart." Two rings passed hand to hand. Simple, elegant, etched with the date of their first meeting, not at a gala, not in a fairy tale, but in the hallway of a daycare. Callum slid hers on. "With this, I promise melody in every silence." Imani slid his. "With this, I promise rhythm in every step." Soraya chimed in. "And I promise to remind you both when it's bedtime." The crowd burst into laughter. "Noted," Callum grinned. "Forever noted," Imani added. "You may now kiss." The words hadn't even landed before Callum pulled Imani close, cradling her cheek as their lips met in a kiss layered with every second lost and every second reclaimed. Soft applause turned into full celebration. Soraya twirled in the aisle, spinning like a top. "We did it! We did it!" Callum scooped her up again. "No one could have done it without you." Imani reached for both of them. "This is our beginning." The small reception followed under a tent draped in fairy lights. Instead of a first dance, Soraya insisted on a first family twirl. "Everyone has to spin at least once," she declared, dragging cousins and uncles onto the lawn. The music played, soft jazz, followed by gentle ballads. Imani and Callum moved slowly, holding Soraya between them. "You're my favorite people," she whispered mid-spin. "You smell like forever." They laughed again, holding her tighter. Imani's best friend stood to toast. "This isn't just a wedding. It's a triumph. Over misunderstanding, over doubt, over time." Callum's mother added her toast via video, beaming with joy. "I knew the day I saw Soraya. This child came from love." Then Soraya took the mic. She stood on a chair, cleared her throat. "I'm not good at speeches, but—" "Mommy cries happy now." Callum laughs more. "And we eat pancakes on Saturdays. That means it's a good family." Applause, tears, heartstrings tugged beyond repair. As the evening drew to a close, fireflies danced along the hedges. Imani and Callum stood hand in hand as guests began to leave. Soraya dozed on a blanket, one hand still clutching her violin. "You know," Callum said softly, "I never imagined my second chance would be better than my first." Imani leaned her head on his shoulder. "Because it was never just about love. It was about choosing each other, again and again." Kissed again under the willow tree. No big exit. No fireworks. Just peace. Just presence. And just beyond, Soraya stirred and sleepily whispered, "Are we a lullaby now?" Callum smiled. "We're the whole album." The sky was soft pink, and the dew hadn't yet dried from the garden leaves. Inside the cottage tucked at the far end of willow oaks, Imani stirred in bed, her hand instinctively reaching out. Callum was already awake, sitting by the window, watching the sun rise with a stillness that only came from peace rediscovered. Soraya sleepily padded into the room in her bunny slippers, her toy violin dragging behind her. "Daddy?" He turned. "Yes, sweetheart." "You're crying again." Her brows scrunched like she was solving a math problem. "It's just love, you know. Not onions." Callum chuckled, brushing a tear away with the back of his hand. "I know. But sometimes love leaks out of your eyes when your heart's too full." She climbed into his lap, patting his face like a seasoned therapist. "Well, next time, blink faster." Later that morning, while Imani cooked breakfast, fluffy pancakes shaped like hearts, Callum sat with Soraya at the kitchen island. "I was scared once," he told her softly, "that I had missed everything important." "But you didn't," Soraya replied, licking syrup from her fingers. "You came back. That's what counts." He looked over at Imani, who glanced up from the skillet with a warm smile. "And Mommy forgave you because you helped with math homework and stopped leaving your socks in weird places." "Also important," Imani teased. Callum laughed. "Very important." Later that day, the trio sat in the same garden where their journey had shifted. The ceremony was over. The guests had gone. The chairs were being packed away. But the roots of something far deeper had taken hold. Imani leaned her head on Callum's shoulder. "Do you think she'll remember all this?" "Maybe not every detail," he said. "But she'll remember the feeling, the safety, the laughter, the way love felt like home." Soraya stood up from her little picnic blanket, wiping grass off her knees. "Hey, Daddy?" "Yes, honey. I think we're stuck with you now." Callum blinked. "Stuck?" "Yep." She crossed her arms. "You gave us pancakes. And kisses. And you even danced. That's permanent. You're officially glue." Laughter erupted again. Soft, healing, uninterrupted. Love isn't proven by grand speeches. It's proven by presence. It's proven by everyday actions. It's proven by the quiet choice to show up again and again until trust becomes home. Brought unexpected joy into your life? Comment below. Share this story with someone who deserves a second chance. Like this video to honor the families built not by perfection, but by persistence. And to my beautiful family here at Love and Twilights, don't forget to subscribe. I hold you all in my heart, and I pray that you always find the kind of love that stays and shows up.